and thanking him for the blessings he's given you. So the P in people stands for prayer. The E in people, P-E, stands for even-tempered. You got to be even-tempered in your family. You're going to have some troubles if you don't. How many know this? All right. So it's a no-brainer, but we got to talk about it. There's this guy who wrote for the Reader's Digest, and he was going to study the Amish people and do an article. Here's a little tidbit about his studies. He studied the Amish people in preparation for an article on them. In his observation at the schoolyard, he noted that the children never screamed or yelled. I'm just reading the article. This amazed him. He spoke to the schoolmaster. He remarked how he had not once heard an Amish child yell and asked why the schoolmaster thought that was so. And the schoolmaster replied, well, hey, have you ever heard an Amish adult yell? I'm thinking you can look at that one of two ways. They either are so good at it that the kids are scared to death of them and they don't raise their voices, or the parents set the example. You could look at it either way. I'm not sure what the intent of the article was. Benjamin Franklin said, anger is never without a reason, but seldom a good one. And then he said, and what's begun in anger always ends in shame. Don't misunderstand me and don't misunderstand the Bible. Anger is not always a sin. The Bible says be angry and don't sin. So you can be angry without sinning. You ever heard the wrath of God? Okay, God gets angry, so anger cannot be a sin. If God does it, it can't be a sin, necessarily. So there's good anger. It's just you got to know how to deal with that anger at the right time and in the right way. There are times when I'm at home that my anger is just when I yell at the kids. But there are often times when it's not. When I mess up, I try to apologize. Every human messes up. It's only, the funny thing is, when you mess up, everybody knows it. So it's like apologizing, what's that going to make you look stupid? You already look stupid. Apology is going to make you look good. So don't be afraid to apologize if you mess up. It's important in a family for everyone to control their tempers. James wrote, the wrath of man does not work the righteousness of God. I love that verse. If you do become angry, don't let your anger lead you into sin, and don't stay angry all day. Ephesians 4:26. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't be angry all day. So there's a proper way of dealing with anger. When you see an injustice happen, and you get mad, that's right, you should get mad. There's something wrong with you if you don't get mad when you see an injustice. God gets mad when he sees an injustice. But God loves people, even those who commit injustices. His anger is not more powerful than his love. There's a part in the New Testament where Jesus goes into the temple, flips over the tables of the money changers, chases them all out with a whip. Could you imagine being there that day? Think he was happy singing, "Oh, happy day"? He was ticked off, chasing them out with a whip. It wasn't sin. Jesus never sins. He had the right to do that. Had somebody else done it, it would have been a sin, but he had the right to do it. And the interesting thing is that most people skip over when they tell this story is in one of the Gospels it says he made the whip ahead of time. So was he under control? Of course he was. He was just sitting in the corner making a whip. I got a job to do. He didn't like blow up and lose his temper. He just said, you know what, this is wrong. I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to fix it now. There's a little thread over here, some leather, fashions a whip. What was his disciples doing while he was making the whip? Looking at one another going, what's he doing? I don't know what he's doing. You see that look in his eye? I see the look in his eye. You ask him. I'm not going to ask him. We look at Jesus as though he was some sissy boy. All the pictures portray him. That wasn't Jesus. He was a man's man. And he chased out a whole bunch of men with that whip. They came running. He came running, they went running. So anger is not always a bad thing, but we've got to be very cautious with how we deal with it. We have to be even-tempered. And I looked it up in the Bible a few places, and I was rather surprised at what I found. In the family, that's what we're talking about today, the men, the fathers, are given more responsibility for the even-tempered nature of the household than anybody else. Fathers are given that responsibility. Listen to this from Colossians chapter 3. Husbands, love your wives and don't be embittered against them. What's that mean? I read that thing hundreds of times. Don't be embittered against them. That sounds like don't be ticked off at your wife, doesn't it? Isn't that what it sounds like? But I looked up the word embittered against them, and that's not what the Greek says. Listen to this. It says, don't exasperate, anger, grieve, or irritate them. And I thought, who translated that? It had to be some dude. Because he took a verse that seems to be saying to me, don't tick off your wife, and he flipped it around and said, don't be mad at your wife. That's not the same thing. It says, don't irritate your wives. I wonder why he had to say that. We don't have a tendency to do that, do we, man? No, I don't. Then verse 21, it says, fathers, don't exasperate or provoke your children, or they'll lose heart. So basically, Colossians says, dads, don't tick off your wives or your kids. And in the Steve's version, because you have a tendency to do so. Men, the piece of the household, is significantly your responsibility. Not exclusively, because there's that one verse in the Bible that says it's better to live out in the desert than in the house with a woman who's always griping. But that verse is in the Old Testament. That was written a long time ago. Come up to the New Testament, and it's all on the man. You know, we exasperate our children when we're too strict with them. And we ruin our children when we're not strict enough with them. It's a difficult balancing act. There's a good steering wheel prayer right there. God, help me raise my kids. Help me not to exasperate them. Help me not to ruin them. Pastor Charles Swindoll had some bullet points on how to help raise kids, and I just thought I'd read them to you because I thought they were so helpful. If a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, he learns to fight. If a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If a child lives with shame, he learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns confidence. If a child lives with praise, he learns to appreciate. If a child lives with fairness, he learns justice. If a child lives with security, he learns to have faith. If a child lives with approval, he learns to like himself. And if a child lives with acceptance and friendship, the child learns to find love. It is a balancing act to raise our children. But with some steering wheel prayer, following the advice of our parents, friends that have raised children before us, it's not impossible to do a good job. You want to have a happy home? You have to let her P, bathe it in prayer. You want to have a strong and happy home? You got to let her E, be even-tempered. If you want to have a happy and strong home, you got to let her O, learn obedience. Obedience and submission. How many of you like those words? A couple of you raise your hand, maybe. Those are negative words in today's society. Obedience, submission. You realize, though, in God's kingdom, everybody practices submission. And in God's kingdom, everybody practices leadership. Obedience and submission are not a bad thing from God's perspective. They're a good thing. Jesus was about 13 years old, went to Jerusalem with his parents for a holiday and to worship. Parents turn around with their big extended family. They head back home. They get out of town, I don't know, a couple days worth. And somebody said, where's Yeshua? He must be with the cousins. No, the cousins sent over here to say, where's Yeshua? Well, he must be with Grandma. No, Grandma said, come ask the cousins, where's Yeshua? So they went frantically looking for Yeshua. Yeshua was nowhere to be found. So the whole caravan turns around and goes back to Jerusalem. They get to the temple, and there he is teaching the rabbis. 13 years old. Probably just had his bar mitzvah, and they were amazed at what they heard. And they kept talking. They said, what are you doing? Don't you know how scared we were? And he said, what do you mean? Don't you know I'm supposed to be doing my Father's business? Huh. What did they say? Here's the amazing part. It's the next verse. It says, Jesus went home and was subject to them. God became a human being, went home, and obeyed his mom and dad.